Hey everybody, it's Ben here, and one thing that I've been interested in is electric tractors, and unfortunately there haven't been too many great documented projects. There's a few people working on those, but it just doesn't seem to get out to the internet and YouTube and places like that where we can learn more about it, which is why I was pretty interested that the other day I found somebody who was posting an electric tractor conversion on social media. So I called him up to see if we could chat a bit to talk more about that project. So with us today is Danny Rowland. Danny, thanks for joining us here.
Hey, how you doing? Good to be here.
So I am in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, and you know it's kind of near Milwaukee. Where are you right now?
I'm in Battleground, Washington. We're just north of Portland, Oregon by about 15 minutes. So the big metro area here is the Portland, Vancouver metro area. But we are in the country in a rural city called Battleground.
And what you do is you're actually on, I don't know if a hobby farm is the correct term, but you're on some number of acres and you're actually working the land.
Yeah. My wife and I are pastured poultry farmers. We started doing this about 8 years ago, and we just recently kind of came out into the public and got our certification in the state and all that to provide pastured poultry at market. And I've been running these 1975 PowerKing tractors. It's a 5-acre lot of land, so it's not a lot. And you know, we barely squeaked by as farmers last year, and we're hoping to make it through the winter and do it again next year.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever accused farmers of having a easy job. It's a lot of work, especially when you've got to focus on, for example, organic farming. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in terms of your motivation, why you decided you wanted to electrify a tractor?
Yeah, well, so we started the farm 8 years ago, and I actually come from a couple of different industries. I started out in television, and then I've been for the last 6 years prior to COVID hitting, I was a construction manager in Portland. And so I kind of have a variety of backgrounds. And in the television industry, I was involved in sets and also in camera operation and that sort of thing. So I kind of have smattering in all kinds of different things that apply to farming. And then eventually it came to the tractor, all this kind of knowledge that I've been accruing all these years. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here. And the reason that I decided to electrify, it was really more of a whim at first, because I looked at the way the drivetrain works on these 1975 PowerKings, and it's really an ideal candidate because of the way the clutch works and the hydraulics work on these specific tractors. The hydraulics are driven by just a standard V-belt system that pumps a small 7-gallon per minute hydraulic pump, and that keeps your hydraulic charged. And it's driven by what you see on the screen here, which is that's the clutch flywheel. And as you can see, there's the 3 V-belt grooves on it right there. And those go out of a belt to kind of another slip clutch that engages the hydro, and it's just a spring slip. So as it pulls, you know, it slips until it gets good grip or traction, and then it starts spinning the pump in full. So once it's engaged, the hydro is engaged. It's pretty awesome. And it's also driving the drivetrain of the tractor at the same time, so you kind of have this choice. You can drive and operate the hydro. And it became a kind of ideal in the scenario that it's going to be driven by one motor.
So you've got the 3 V-belt, kind of a triple pulley that's right on there with the clutch. So the wheels are being driven by the power coming through the clutch. You said the hydraulic pump is on one of those V-belts. What's on the other 2 V-belts?
They're actually all 4 different implements if you want. You can run a V-belt down, like a really long one that'll go down to, say, a belly mower. The one that I run goes to the side lift implement hydraulic, which is just a really standard implement lift up and down, and that's how I lift the the plow and the cultivator and that sort of thing with the hydraulic system there. So it's actually for just being able to use multiple implements in multiple different positions. And so with the loader tractor, I've got 3 of these tractors. And the reason I did that was because I almost broke my arm the first time I tried to remove the loader and the backhoe and move it. So I decided I was never doing that again. So then I decided, well, I could always use another tractor, especially since, this is a 1975. I get a parts tractor. Well, I just bought a tractor because it was cheaper to buy a tractor from out on the East Coast and the Midwest than it is to buy a new tractor here on the West Coast. And these PowerKings came from Wisconsin, I believe, originally, and then there's just a whole bunch of them in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia. There's guys that are scrapping them, and there's guys that are rebuilding them. And my big problem was the K321S cast iron engine. I don't know how to work on, and nobody around here wants to work on them. So I found myself in this constant situation where I was replacing the engine, as you can see, the one hanging there. So I've literally bought 4 engines for these because, as you can imagine, 47-year-old engines, they're going to die. Even if you get a new one from someone that's in pretty good shape, there's bound to be something wrong with it. I bought one rebuilt that's really works great and these things are amazing. The engines are amazing, but so is the tractor itself. So.
Well, and is this is the brand name, is that Economy? Is it the Economy Tractor King? I know I've got a friend always talks about economy tractors. Are these things that he's talking about?
Yeah, so I believe it was Economy originally. So, and the PowerKing is the model. So I think it was originally they were just called Economies, and then they switched to PowerKings. But I could be wrong on that. I don't have my history 100% on the PowerKing.
It looks like a really good candidate for an electric conversion because what I've run into so far working on electric converted tractors, the issue with tractors is they are complicated. It's with an electric car, you've got wheels. You just have to spin wheels. That's all there is to it. So like way back when I converted a Geo Metro to electric, it was put an electric forklift motor in there and spin the wheels, no problem. But with a tractor, you've got the PTO, you've got hydraulics, you've got the wheels. It just gets complicated, and it looks like these tractors you've got here are so simple. And you've got the rails going to the front too, because that's another issue. Is there's a lot of tractors where the engine itself is a structural element. You literally split the tractor in half to take the engine out, and you don't have that here.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to. You still have to enable to get to the PTO, the drive belly. The V-belt drive. You do have to remove the engine and pull the clutch so that you can loop new belts around it. But I got around that by eventually starting to do link belts. Like industrial link belts that you'd see in a woolery, somewhere that runs big equipment where they need to change those out. So I found some link belts that worked, and that's kind of how I've run a couple of the tractors. And then when I do take them apart, I end up strapping a couple of extra belts to the inside of the clutch housing, and then they're there when I break one.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the specs on this in terms of like what motor you're using, what batteries you're using, controller, kind of all the technical stuff for the conversion to electric.
Of course, yeah. So this is the thing that I'm learning right now, because this is my first. This is my first conversion. So really it starts with Green Shed Conversions. They're pretty active on a couple of forums that I started following, and they reached out to me when I first put up a post asking about it and saying that they were totally willing to help and engage, and here's this cool video of a tractor they made, etc. And it was really cool, and it gave me a great inspiration, and they were so nice on the phone, and they're so helpful. They've been amazingly helpful. And so I did all my specking by myself at first, and then I kind of went through them to get my ideas, just verified, I suppose is the right word for it. And So they helped me respec a couple of things. So basically, what I got is some stuff that Green Shed Conversions helped me pick out, and that's the ME 1003 brushed DC motor. And yeah, that's that there. And then the controller I got is the Alltrax 72 volt controller. I don't know its exact model number. I could grab it and look, but yeah, so that's the controller, and then of course all the stuff that comes with it. They sent me the BMS and the charger. If you want me to, I can run over and grab those and look at their names really quick.
Pull that up and
I don't
put
have
that
that
in
right
the
in front of
video
me at the
description
moment.
later.
So long story short is I trusted this group of people to really help me spec everything out, people who've done it lots of times and are willing to give me customer support, and that's kind of where I went, because I'm really not a super electronics focused person. I learned my mechanicking skills came from getting a PowerKing and having it break in half the first year that I had it, and having to actually take it all the way apart and put it all the way back together again, which is probably the first moment that I realized that it could be driven by electric motor, just because I've kind of had some experience with irrigation pumps that were electric motors, and I knew how powerful they were, and I almost thought about putting an irrigation pump on it at first. So anyway, that's kind of how I got my specs. So I trusted someone else, and so far so good. Did I lose you?
No, I'm just taking a look here through a couple of these photos. We've got one here. This is with your batteries, brand new. Not even out of plastic yet. Oh, here we go. So it looks like you're right in the middle of working on this project right now. I mean, you are doing. Yep. I probably interrupted you today to interview you. You would have been working on this otherwise. I see the batteries in here. So tell me about the batteries.
Yeah. Okay, these are 3.2 volt, 100 amp hour Calb batteries, and there's 23 of them. And that's to make the 72 volt 100 amp hour battery that I need to power the motor, and that the controller handles and all that, and what the BMS is spec for, what the charger is spec for. That's why it's 23 batteries.
I'm kind of laughing a little bit because you've got the Mott Energy motor, you've got the Alltrax motor controller. This is actually very similar to my original electric motorcycle, which was only 48 volts, not 72, and it was lead acid rather than lithium, but this was also, like 15 years ago. But yeah, it was an Alltrax motor controller. I had the 48 volt axe, and boy, it really worked very nice, very, very simple, good equipment. Alltrax, good name, so it's kind of nice when you get to go with some sort of almost like industry standard kind of stuff. So what are your next steps on this? You got to build a battery box and start working on connecting the batteries and the controller, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so my next step, I'm still trying to figure out. I just got someone who noticed how I stacked 3 of the batteries, tell me that he didn't think that they were designed to be put on their side, but I didn't see anything in my manuals or anything, so I'm gonna reach out to Green Shed and ask them if those ones I spec'd, if they've had any experience putting them on their side or not. I didn't really understand that, how the battery and what floats in that and all that, and it might only be getting part of it immersed. So anyway, that was kind of an interesting post response. Someone said, but I don't know. Like I said, these are things that I'm learning about, so I didn't really know that as I was fabricating, but that's okay. It's an easy cut and re-weld if I do need to stand them up. I think there's enough room, but I might have to move them to the original plan, which is back behind the seat, and just have a run a long bus line back to it. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm hoping I don't have to do, but things change, so.
Well, that's kind of what I really enjoyed about working on an electric motorcycle and an electric car was all the stuff that I learned. I had some friends that were helping me out at some point. There were a lot of things that I just learned by doing, a few things that I learned from library books, web pages, whatever I could get my hands on. So you've clearly been learning a lot working on this. What's been kind of the most interesting part of it for you so far?
Wow, what's the most interesting part so far? I think the challenge of the challenge that a lot of ICE, internal combustion engine people have put forth, that it's never going to be strong enough, that sort of thing. I've seen some of the things that is happening in the electric world, and EV is happening whether people want to believe it or not. And I'm looking forward to proving them wrong. So that's one thing. But what I've really enjoyed so far is really just kind of figuring out how it's all going to fit, because really, I think there's this space in the EV world where there's the joining of the old and the new, and that's what I think is so cool about this project, figuring out how to fit it all in the original box and hood. And I figured out if I did a couple cuts and refabricated the dashboard, I could flip it open to get to where I'm going to mount the controller. So I'm going to be working on that today. There's just, what I really want is to walk away from this project with my tractor looking exactly the same as a vintage 1975 tractor that is working on the farm and is, still looks the same. I don't want something that looks like big batteries and, all smashed together. I kind of want to restore this tractor. And that was my original thought a long time ago when I first got these. Is like, oh, this will be a fun thing to restore after I'm done using them on the farm. But obviously, I'm using them all the time because they're dirty and beat up. But the motor, I felt like if I replaced the motor and learned the electronics and learned EV, the technology for batteries is just going to get better. They're going to get lighter. They're going to get smaller. So if I can figure out how to get them into this space, and then I have an electric motor situation that maybe will last a really long time. A company like Mode Energy, it seems like they have really good quality products, and I feel like I'll be able to make these tractors basically last forever. And it seems like a lot to spend right now, but I still was spending a lot of money on getting motor or engines out here, and just to have them run for half a season and then have to replace them again. So I feel like in this scenario, I have this new difficulty, which is the amp hours. And can I get the stuff done that I need to get done? But the cool thing is I don't have to keep it running so that it doesn't die. So there's just all these things that I'm learning and excited. I'm really excited to get it started so I can like time it and figure it out and see what it can do and what it can't do and all that. So did that answer your question?
Mentioned, the cost, like particularly batteries, those tend to be very expensive. I know I seldom have much money for my various do-it-yourself projects. Farmers aren't typically known for being rich, so how are you paying for the conversion here?
Well, so I started a crowdfund with GoFundMe, and it was really, at first it was, I had no idea. I've already invested in a bunch of the technology, with my own credit and that sort of thing. But what I want to do is do a multiple tractor conversion where it's actually a modular top that removes and drops into my other tractors, so that I can always just use the same battery, BMS, controller, all that stuff, all that's set up, and then I just am using Anderson plugs to plug straight into the motors. So my thinking is I'll buy another motor and I'll refabricate that motor mount and bracket. And I was kind of trying to decide if I'm going to get a whole other set of batteries and that sort of thing. But for now, I don't think I'm going to. I really want to see, because I only use one tractor at a time. I have multiple tractors. There are different duties on the farm. So I have 3, and I figured if I did 2 electric and kept 1 combustion for now, we'll see how the first 2 go. And the GoFundMe has helped me finish. I bought the motor and the controllers and all the stuff, and now I've been able to buy the rest of the batteries. So I have all the batteries I need for the first one, and some of the fabrication parts and that sort of thing. That's starting to help. And then I figured that the next part will help with the second tractor. And then I'm hoping to maybe put, if the GoFundMe went crazy, who knows if it will or not. It'll turn into me putting a small solar charging like shack, basically tractor shack probably in the middle of the property, so I can just park it there and plug it in. So that's kind of my thinking right now. But yeah, the GoFundMe started off with just a bunch of friends donating, and I was shocked at how much just from my small friend group came in. And so I kind of started blasting it out there, and it's gotten a ton of local news attention, and it's just been really exciting and fun, and I just kind of went with it. And I just feel like something has to be done about the environment. And I'm one of these kind of people that just goes, okay, well, let's do it then. So that's why I did it. And I just kind of believe that whatever I'm going to do is going to work out for the best. So.
Yeah, and so you're walking the walk, so to speak, when it comes to the whole eco thing. Solar was something I was going to ask you about. I know on one of the social media posts somebody said, "Hey, have you thought about putting solar on the tractors?" And I'm kind of like, "Geez, let the guy finish converting it to electric first." But I know these are kind of relatively smaller tractors, so having some sort of a canopy on them probably might not be the most practical thing. But like a solar shed or something sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, a canopy on the tractor, they do have these old ones, but again, that's like, it's a really limited footprint. I don't know if a battery, what I would need for solar would actually fit on there, and I'm still trying to keep them the look that they had originally, so.
Now, you mentioned that you've got a couple of different tractors. We can actually see right behind you right now is the orange one that you're working on converting. I also see a green one back there, and it looks like you've got like a mini backhoe on it, which looks like a very, very cool piece of equipment. I'm sure the third tractor is probably on the other side of the camera or something. But why did you decide to convert the orange one first? And you said they have like different uses. So what are the uses for the tractors? Was the orange one the most useful, and that's why you wanted to do it first, or what?
No, well, that was my original thinking, was I'll do the most useful one first. Then it turns out every time I tried to start doing it, I needed to use it. So they're all the exact same tractor. So so as I was saying about the motors or the engines, I have problems with them. Well, the orange one was having the worst problems with the engine, and it's also the belly mower tractor. It's the brush hog tractor, and I'm not mowing right now. Being here in the Pacific Northwest, the grass isn't growing like most of the rest of the country, or most of the northern part of our country. But yeah, and then the backhoe loader one is the one that I use the most, probably, just to save the backbreaking labor. I mean, the whole reason I got a tractor is because I injured myself so badly in the first year of being a farmer. So that tractor kind of has to work all the time, and it'll be the next one that I do, though, because I also believe that it probably, the way that I work that tractor, the 100 amp hour battery will probably be the best on that one and the least amount of load, whereas the plow tractor, the orange one, is the belly mower, so that's got a lot of load on it, especially if it's tall grass. And then the smallest one is kind of it's the implement tractor, so it's got the implement lift on it, and then it also has I have a dump trailer that's attached to that, and I have all those kind of things, like I've got a plow, I've got a cultivator, I've got a tiller, and so that one's the one I reserve for all the implements that it can easily take on and off the discs and all of that sort of thing. So that one would probably be the one that I just keep as a internal combustion right now until I see how these ones perform. And then the other thing is, with the orange one, I can take the belly mower off and I can test out everything except for the loader and backhoe, but I know that load on that is much less because it's really just running a small 7 gallon per minute hydraulic pump that runs those implements. So yeah, that's what my thinking was. So
with the backhoe, it really is just that belt coming off the electric motor running a pump, and then the rest of it is all, I guess, little hand controls that run the valves for moving the backhoe then. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I understand the whole getting injured sort of a thing. I got hurt a couple of years ago in a vehicle collision, made it really hard just to do things like yard work and stuff like that. And I've got a 1970s General Electric lawn and garden tractor, commercially built by a big company in the 1970s. And one thing I found was kind of neat about it was I could just operate the whole thing with one hand. Tractors are sort of a little notoriously difficult to complicated to operate. You actually have like left and right brakes, hand controls, foot controls, choke and throttle and everything like that. And the electric, it was like it was so simple. Oh, another question for you. What are you planning on doing for your throttle? Because in a car, you've got your accelerator pedal. On a motorcycle, you've got your twist throttle. What are you planning, at least as of right now, for the throttle on the tractor?
Yeah, I have a throttle controller. It's a small like dial knob style one. So I'm gonna place that on my dash, and then that'll be my throttle control. And that, like I was saying, the controls are going to be mounted. The controller is going to be mounted underneath. I'll have the meter, the battery meter on the front, and I'll have that throttle control on the front. And then on the back side of the dash, there'll be the contactor, the controller, and something else. I can't think of what it is though at the moment.
So that'll be nice and simple. You just flip the switch to on, turn the throttle to whatever position you want. Basically, you've got cruise control that way. You don't have to hold the throttle in position or anything like that, which if you're doing
exactly
long row.
Well, and with this tractor, sorry.
No, go ahead.
With this tractor specifically, it already is designed to be started and stopped, like shifted from full stop. So it's not actually, this clutch type is not designed for rolling shifts, and the transmission isn't really designed for rolling shifting and that sort of thing. So it kind of actually is going to work well with how an electric motor turns on and off, and then you can throttle it down, throttle it back up. And that's kind of what I do already. I get it started, but then I'm leaving the tractor running, so it's just pumping, it's going through fuel. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I don't really sit on that unless I'm doing like a giant field mow or something like that. I'm not on the tractor for more than an hour at a time anyway. It's usually, or it's not running for an hour at a time. I'm usually like on and off and on and off and on and off, but the engine's going the whole time. Whereas with an electric, I'm just going to turn it off and jump back on, turn back on again. So that's kind of exciting.
The other thing that I've always liked about electric equipment is it's quiet, and the other thing is that it doesn't vibrate. Gosh, I mean, I've only ever ridden electric motorcycles, but one time when I was working on mine, a friend came over on his Harley, and it's brum, bum, 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 and it was summer and just hot, and it's so easy to forget that gas motorcycles are hot and loud. And if you work with a regular typical tractor, it's but it's always idling and loud, and you got to have the radiator fans sucking air through to cool it down and everything like that. And it's quiet. I mean, even out in California, they recently did kind of like a small engine ban. They don't want weed whackers and leaf blowers and things like that running with little teeny tiny 2-stroke engines. So
right.
You've got a nice piece of electric lawn and garden equipment. It's quiet. It's not polluting, especially the 2-stroke with just burning the oil, loose smoke going in the air. Oh God, it's just so nasty.
Yeah, definitely. That was one thing me and my friend were joking about. But then it was kind of a cool thing is we were joking about how you're not going to hear the engine anymore. You're going to hear all the other things that are wrong with the tractor. But then he goes, but that might be a good thing because you're going to know exactly when something's about to fail. So you'll have a long lead time to when something might fail. So you'll be able to get the grease gun out or go check the bearings or whatever. So I thought, oh, you know what? That's actually a good point. So
yeah, well, I actually think that the sound level is it's sort of a safety feature too, because I know like with my electric riding lawnmower versus my neighbor's V-twin gas engine mower, when they're mowing their lawn, I can't hear a thing over at my house. And if like my 11-year-old daughter came running up behind me, if I'm on a gas lawnmower, I wouldn't be able to hear her. And with an electric one, I can, hey, Dad, I'm over here. I can hear her. And, tractors do have a certain amount of danger associated with them. Any power equipment does. But I think when you've got a quiet piece of equipment, there's a lot of advantages to that.
Yeah, and I think my neighbors, like you said, will appreciate it because these are not quiet tractors. They're a 14 horsepower cast iron Kohler from the 70s. So, I mean, they are really loud, even with the mufflers on them. So,
and probably just a real small, a little can muffler sort of a thing on there, I would imagine, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what are the... Are there any other advantages you really have in mind right now with the electric instead of gas? I mean, you can do things like use them indoors if you want. I mean, there's a lot of neat things about electric vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, So the great thing about the 75 PowerKing is that it's a really narrow wheelbase. So it fits through my sliding barn doors. I can get into a pretty small barn. I can turn corners. I can go through gates. All of that. It's more like the size of like a, your typical riding lawnmower, not like a giant decked one, excuse me, but it's more like the size of, I don't know what they usually are, 40-inch decks or something like that. So it can fit through everything. That's exciting. The other advantages for us, and this isn't just an advantage of the tractor itself, but it's an advantage for the way that our farm is that I want to be able to say, these chickens are carbon emission light because we pasture raise our animals so they get pulled onto new grass every day. And that's that's a thing that's done with the tractors. If I'm using the big chicken tractors are too heavy, the smaller ones I can pull by hand. But I made sleds. I welded up steel sleds last season and built these larger chicken tractors so we could actually provide for the local market. And now I feel like I could say, like, hey, our farm's going, we're trying to go carbon neutral and these chickens are carbon emission light. So maybe that'll help for sales. I don't know. So.
Yeah, we actually, I know a guy not real far from where I live. They do kind of similar to you. They sell a lot of eggs to some local supermarkets and some high-end restaurants. And they've got a really fantastic solar array on their barn. And another family member there has an electric car conversion I want to shoot a video on sometime. But I look at that and I'm like, wow, they're just kind of really doing everything right. Another thing I was thinking is we are starting to see things like modern commercial electric riding lawnmowers. There's some of these zero turns out there, that sort of thing. Not that they're inexpensive. I mean, most of those zero turns, they kind of start at like $5,000 on up. But they do have nice battery systems. I mean, did you consider taking a look at, well, maybe it's time to abandon this old tractor. Maybe I should just go buy an electric zero turn lawnmower and I can put an attachment on the back? Or did you have any ideas like that?
Well, so, I did not really. I never really thought that would be the way it would work for our farm because I've already invested so much in the way these tractors are with their implement systems and all of that stuff. I mean, looking at something for $5,000 is actually the same cost it is for me to turn one of these tractors into the same thing. It's about $5,000 to do one tractor probably by the time it's all said and done. But that's a tractor that's now worth, like, you can sell the tractors with the loaders and the buckets and all that. There's no way you would find something for that price. So to me, it's like I'm putting a brand new engine in, but since I'm putting in a brand new motor instead, I'm not putting in a brand new engine and I'm not refabricating for more carbon emission. I'm going the other way. So I'm excited about that with the loader tractor for sure, because there's no way. I mean, I looked into the pricing of just buying a new tractor, like a new tractor, and you're talking $30,000-$40,000 to do what I already have here. And if I can turn that into electric for $5,000, I feel like that's actually a good thing. So.
Yeah, we've got a John Deere dealer pretty much down the road here, just a couple miles, and they've got some great tractors with the loaders on them and everything, but oh my God, the sticker shock. I mean, I'd love to have one of those machines, but no, I'd run out and buy most of a Tesla for what one of those costs. Although I kind of would like to have an electric pickup truck or something like that. Would be kind of neat. A lot of cool things coming out. But I completely agree with you in terms of the. I also like old stuff that's fixable and you can unbolt something, bolt something else on, and looks like you got a winner with that particular tractor in terms of how the other attachments and everything connect on there. That was one of the issues that I've been having with a tractor project I've been working on, is just exactly how to connect everything together. It's a little challenging, I get to play engineer, which can be really fun sometimes, a little frustrating other times. Now, if people want to learn more about what you're doing, how would they follow the progress of your projects here?
Oh yeah, well, I'm updating regularly to the GoFundMe site, but also we have our Facebook page. And the Facebook page is Misty Frog Acres. And then lastly, I also do have my own YouTube channel, and I don't have that many subscribers, but I kind of document everything I do on the farm, and it's really been about being a 5-acre farmer and trying to make it work all these years. And now the EV tractor thing is a whole other part of the equation, so that's kind of cool too. So yeah, and I'll be putting up, you know, a full build video and all that stuff eventually. I'm like in the middle of it still, and I want to be able to go through the whole process. And the way that I do my my shows and stuff, it's like about all the things that go wrong with my PowerKing. So I'm excited to see maybe what's going to happen with this one. So so yeah, so GoFundMe.com might be the best space to start, and then it has links to our webpage, and Misty Frog Acres has links to our YouTube page, and so yeah, that's kind of my suggestion.
Well, how many different tractor projects have you seen? You know, have you been able to see some other projects either on, you know, YouTube, web pages, in person, anything that kind of inspired you, or you went, yes, I want to do just
honestly,
like that?
No, I didn't do a whole lot of research prior. I mean, what I saw was Green Shed Conversions tractor, and I went, that's what I want to do with my tractor. And then I looked at how it would all go together, and I just kept going, I think this is a perfect tractor for it. I think this is a perfect tractor for it. So honestly, I just went for it, and I'm kind of a learn as you go kind of person, but now I'm starting to get a lot of interest looking at other people's DIY electric projects. I'm trying to learn the electronics more. I'm trying to understand how it all works a lot more. It's not, you know, it's not a crate motor, but I'm trying to make it kind of so that it's kind of one of these things that I can, you know, I try to explain it to people sometimes. I'm like, you know, those fans you get at the fair and you just turn it on and it blows air in your face and keeps you cool? That's what I'm doing. It's the same exact thing. It's the same motor spinning the thing. It spins the drivetrain, all of those things. It's exactly the same as turning on that. It's a battery and the controller is on and off, and maybe you have a dimmer switch on it, makes it go faster or slower. That's the same thing. And so that's how I try and break it down to the like lowest level of understanding, because I feel like that's another thing is people are interested in seeing EV succeed, and so trying to get to a common ground where I can talk to them about what I'm doing. And then also I'm learning as I go, so I learn things every day, either from other people reaching out to me or just looking at stuff. So I am starting to look more at stuff. Right now I'm in a DIY forum, 2 different DIY forums on Facebook, so that's kind of where I see a lot of different builds. And then I've seen guys put up their specs of how they did their builds, but there's not a lot of documentation on what they did. And I haven't done a lot of research, but I didn't see any on people doing PowerKing. So I'm hoping mine's the first, and that'd be cool if it was, but if not, you know, good on whoever's doing it, because I think it's a good candidate. So,
Well, what's been maybe the most challenging thing for you so far?
The most challenging thing so far is, I hate to admit it, honestly, but it's like really understanding how the system all goes together. I've had to really lean on other people that like explain it to me, but I feel like I'm starting to get a grasp of it. You know, I've learned more about battery systems and what the difference between series and parallel is, and I've learned more about controllers, and I've learned more about inverters, and so it's just all of it's challenging, honestly. But on the one level, I'm pretty good at fabricating. I get how engines work. I'm clever, but I'm not an engineer. You know, I've always just been hey, I want to figure out how to make this thing work, and then I just trial and error kind of engineering. So.
Yeah, I actually, that was almost a pet peeve at a certain point. People going, "Are you an engineer?" I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to figure stuff out. I didn't go to engineering school or anything." But I will say, on any project, it's always nice when you can have somebody else help you out, when somebody has different skills than you do. You know, invite a few friends over for a Saturday and bring some beers or something. But you been doing this all by yourself, or have you had any help on this, or a mix? What's it been?
So far, other than the Green Shed helping me spec everything and being available for my questions, I've done it all myself. I do have on tap my friend who's an electrician to come over and help me when it's time to get everything wired up. I'm still waiting for a couple of things. right now, so that like the BMS came, but not the cables that connect all the batteries to the BMS. So I'm waiting for that little plug in those wires. You know, there's just like these a couple extra things, and then I was looking at stuff and I was like, wait a minute, where's that thing? Or wait, how does that plug in? And so I had to call them and ask them, oh, that thing's still on its way, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm excited to engage with my buddy. He's going to come up here and we're going to get in the shop. But I kind of wanted to get done with the fabrication part because it's just kind of takes a lot of thinking and welding and looking and re-welding and cutting. And, you know, I kind of wanted to make sure I could fit everything under it, make sure it fits all where I want it to go. And then I kind of bounce stuff off of Green Shed, and then they say, oh yeah, you should think about this or that. And then when I get down to the wiring portion, the electronics portion, Nathan's going to come over and he's going to help me out, make sure that I don't do anything stupid as I'm putting it all together. So,
Well, on the fabrication side of things, it looks like it's been pretty straightforward so far, in that it's just a nice blocky tractor, very simple, straightforward parts. But what did you have to do to connect the electric motor to the clutch? Because that's kind of one of the secret sauce sort of things. You've got that part with the belts on there, but you need that to go on the shaft of the motor. You need the motor to somehow bolt in place.
Yeah, so if you pull that picture up again, I'll explain it real quick.
Let's see. Here you go.
The one with, yeah, there you go. So if you go back, actually, so that what we're looking at right there is the clutch, and that goes inside the clutch flywheel housing. And then if you can kind of see on the very end there, past all three of the grooves, right back there, that little silver piece that's popping out at the very end of it, that is actually a new bushing, and that's sized, if you go back to the, go past the three grooves to the end, like to the upper right of the frame there. Yeah, that piece right there, that little silver piece there is a bushing that I had custom fabricated. And what that is doing is going from 7/8 to 1 1/8, and then it has a step key that goes with it so that it all locks together onto the drive shaft. Now, the reason I did that was because of the way the V-belt and all of this runs the hydraulics. Otherwise, I might have just gone straight from 7/8 to the spline, you know, but because I wanted to run the clutch, and some people agreed and some people disagreed, but I kind of went with Steve's suggestion to keep it because of the way that you use the loader tractor, and, you know, you're disengaging and re-engaging, and you're also using the controls to operate the loader and the backhoe. And you're also driving the tractor, so you're scooping into a compost pile and then you're pulling back and then you're dumping it, and you're using all of those things at once. So I had to kind of have the clutch because I don't think I could have done that with just a motor controller up or down. I don't think so.
Yeah, and then you have the actually on the motor itself here, I can see it looks like we've got a new piece of steel that the motor bolts onto, and then that's bolted onto. It's kind of a bell housing. The part where that's
the clutch. That's the clutch bell housing. It's a hogshead is what they call it in PowerKing world. I don't know why, but that's what they call it. If you zoom out of that a little bit, you can see the piece that I fabricated was actually the motor mount. And that mounts directly to, it was a really simple angle iron weld up. I got the heights that I wanted.
So just kind of these parts down here, kind of a big bracket to hold it all together.
Yep, and then that plate there, that motor mounting plate, and then I just drilled pilot holes to where it connected to the clutch bell housing and mounted it all together. My first attempt at it was I measured it off of my other tractor that I thought I was going to do first. That tractor, the green one's name is Goblin, and this is Big Orange. And so once I got over to Big Orange and set it all up, and I got all excited that it was all going to come together at the clutch and the clutch pressure plate and all that, I was an inch off. So every PK is different. So I had to go back, refabricate, move the plate down, and then I decided I was fabricating in place at that point. So I mounted the bell housing to the actual transmission, plate there, and then I reverse engineered from there, basically mounted the plate on, cut, after I'd cut it all out, scooted the bracket up, and then spot welded it, made sure it all fit together, took it off, then finished my welds, and then I put it back on and it all went back together. So that was that was my first oopsie, but it was a pretty easy one, honestly. And angle iron's not super like a super hard thing to find. So.
And you're doing this all relatively low tech. I'm not seeing any 3D printed parts here. I haven't heard you say anything about the CNC plasma cutter that you've been using, or your your CAD design. Nope. I mean, when it comes to CAD, usually for me that means cardboard aided design. So are you just doing like kind of pencil sketches and just very, very traditional kind of work on here, huh?
Yeah. Pencil sketches and then fabricate in place. That's how I've done 100% of it. I don't even think I've done a pencil sketch, really. It's been more like measure, do a couple spot welds, check it. Okay, yeah, that works. Pull it off, redo it. I would love to get, get all those measurements and get something cut and all fancy and nice looking, and maybe eventually I will. When I do the next one, maybe I'll go down to a machine shop and say, hey, can you make this but make it prettier but with these same dimensions, and they can maybe cut me something out. That would be cool. But yeah, I think that's part of the the GoFundMe and moving forward is like, okay, I do that. I'm a farmer. I figure out stuff. I do stuff like I'm always salvaging stuff. Like most of the stuff on the property here is salvage or, recycled, upcycled, people throwing away old Trex decks get turned into chicken coops, and, water towers are made out of 250 gallon, those pallet containers that are, held water or oil or food grade stuff. So, everything I do here is kind of salvage or upcycling. So that's kind of part of it too with the 75s. I don't really want to throw them away. So.
No, I know you're only like kind of halfway through this conversion project, but if somebody else out there was thinking about converting a tractor to electric, at this point, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
I know. Well, my advice for all of my advice for all the DIYers is go for it, right? That's what we do. We're do-it-yourselfers. Just go for it. I would definitely, if there's someone like myself, knowledge-wise, make sure you reach out to somebody and find a company that is as awesome as Green Shed's been for me. I know there's other ones out there. I'm definitely not taking away from anybody else who's out there. I've just been really happy, and they've been really helpful, and that's been cool. And they're excited about the project also, so that makes it fun to talk to them on the phone. So.
Well, I think that covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about the project that I, just kind of completely missed on my list of questions here?
No, I think that, the part that makes the project unique in some ways is that I'm actually trying to do it for all the tractors, but doing it with one battery controller module and making it modular. That's kind of the part that's been the coolest for me, because really just being able to go, hey, I'm going to buy 3 motors and attach them on all my tractors, and then this part, the dash and the controllers, everything lifts out, and then I roll the other tractor under and I drop it down on that one. So that part I feel like I haven't talked to people enough about, but that's really why the fabricating is taking as long as it is, because I have to figure out where to cut the dash and how I'm going to put a rabbit ear here to grab this thing and bolt this back together, and so that it still looks good, but then it just all is going to lift off. So I'm excited for the picture where the project's done, the battery box is built, everything's ready to go, and then here's the tractor done, and then I'll show it with the lid lifted off, and then this will go on to my next tractor thing. That part's kind of exciting. So
we'll definitely get some video. I want to see you with chopping some of these parts off so you can have the whole top lift up. I mean, you're just going to use like a chain hoist or something like that for.
Yeah, I just have a chain hoist here in the shop that I pick my engines. If you go to the picture of the tractor stripped, it's got the engine, the ICE engines hanging in the air there. That's on my chain hoist. You see it there up to the left. So
Well, okay, so kind of like what we see in this photo here, but yeah, you were saying like the whole dashboard, the motor controller. So you're going to have a pair of rollers, and you just lift up the everything on top, roll the other one in,
yeah,
drop it down, some sort of
yeah.
kind of quick release pins, I suppose, of some sort. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I haven't gone to the quick release pin route. I'm just bolting it on. I mean, it's going to be 6 bolts that hold it together. So I'll just unbolt 6 bolts and drop it in and rebolt those 6 bolts back on. So
Everything's not going to be going anywhere when you do that. So very cool.
yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of what I was concerned about, is the jiggling. And I was like, well, I should just bolt it together, and that the subframe should be steel, and I didn't need it to be too wiggly or jiggly. And that's been kind of me trying to figure out how I'm going to actually do that part. That's been the most tricky. And so that's more fabricating. But making sure I have room as I go for the controller and all the things I want to mount to the dash was kind of figuring out that was going to work was exciting. That was like one of my Yahoo moments, like along with the motor and the fabricated, finding the guy who fabricated the bushing size to go up. So that was another Yahoo moment for me. So
well, this just looks like a really cool project. I saw this online and I thought, oh, I should talk to this guy. This is pretty cool. So I certainly look forward to seeing some videos and more of the posts on social media. In the description of this video, I'm going to put in there links, all the places you mentioned earlier, so that people can follow the project. Hopefully, subscribe to you on YouTube, so whatever new videos you come out with, people can get to see those right away. The other thing I'd really like to do is check back in with you sometime, maybe like right after you're done with kind of the first finished version of the tractor, and you can drive it around or something, maybe see how all that's going, and maybe do a little interview with you again at that time.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I get the parts. I mean, I'm so close right now. I'm doing some things that I'll probably redo eventually, but just to make sure that it's all going to work, I'm doing some fabricating. Like I'm doing kind of a bolt together battery box right now, rather than like getting something all put together and fabricated just to find out that that's not going to work exactly how I was hoping. That. So I'm doing all thread and angle iron battery box, and then I'll make sure that that's dust and waterproofed to some degree, because I already have the hood on it. So that's the other advantage of that. Probably be painting on some liquid electrical tape and that sort of thing. But yeah, so once I'm done with that, I'm expecting about, I'm hoping in 2 weeks, maybe it's more like a month, I'm not sure. You never know what you run into as you go on these projects, but I'm hoping in 2 weeks it's up and running, and I'd really like to have it going by March, because that's when the first poultry is hitting the field, and I really want to be able to tow the poultry tractors with it. So
it's always been my experience that things take more, time, money, and energy than you think they do. No matter what you think it is. That's just kind of how projects are. But yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely be cool having your electric tractor moving your big chicken tractors around.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I will be sharing that for sure.
Well, Danny, it's been great talking with you today. So I think at this time we'll wrap it up. We'll make sure to check in with you again sometime not too far from now. And for everybody who's still watching here right now, if you like these types of videos, please like, subscribe, comment. This is the first time that I've done kind of this format of video, so let me know what you think of that as well. So Danny, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited. I hope people are interested enough to throw $20 at the project or $10 at the project and help us out here. So
sounds good. I hope they do too. And until next time, I hope you stay charged up.